Hello, everyone. I'd like to thank you for joining us today for our espresso chat. My name is Linda Coffman, and I'm currently the Executive Vice President of SmartStream's Reference Data Utility, often referred to as the RDU. Today, I'm joined by the RDU's CTO, Rocky Martinez, who will help us understand how firms can and are leveraging APIs to address their reference data pain points. But before we get started, let me give you a quick introduction to the SmartStream RDU managed services for those that aren't familiar with us. The RDU was founded in 2015 through an industry initiative led by a group of Tier 1 banks. The vision at that point in time was to create a platform that consolidates data management activities into a single utility service, allowing users to mutualize costs and benefits through efficiencies and best practices. If you fast forward to today, RDU is an independent entity fully owned by SmartStream Technologies. SmartStream Technologies has been a leader in middle to back office technologies for the last 40 years, and RDU is happy to be part of the SmartStream family. The RDU product suite has really grown considerably over the last 6 years and now includes both security master and regulatory data. We're a data integration and data operations service with the primary goal to deliver the highest quality reference data available to the market. We want to take the worry off the shoulders of others and give firms confidence that the data they're ingesting is cleansed and complete. With that goal in mind, we spent a lot of time making sure our clients can access our data in the most flexible and cost-effective ways, which leads us to our discussion today regarding APIs. So without further ado, let me introduce Rocky Martinez, and let's get the conversation going. Thank you so much, Rocky, for joining me today.
Linda, thank you. It's always my pleasure to talk to you and our clients and our future clients about all the great things we're doing at the RDU.
Yes, we are, and one of those is APIs.
Yep.
So before we dive into some specific use cases that I know we want to cover, can I ask you to share with us from a technology perspective and your own experience, what the key benefits of accessing data via an API versus the typical large file scenario, what those benefits are?
Right. So there may be people in the audience who may not be familiar, but typically in a large organization or even a mid-sized organization, what happens is they get large amounts of data in files, they get them in batch, or they get them every hour, whatever the case may be. And they have to take that data, they have to download it to their servers. They then have to write individual applications to actually take that data, parse it, then store it in either a relational database, or newer companies may be using document databases. And then all that data goes through a cleansing process, and then magically it shows up on some training system as reference data, right?
Yeah.
So that was exhausting just to say that. So what happens, what we did is we realized that we know that's an exhausting process. And if you're an organization that needs to generate revenue quickly or react to a market condition, as we did in 2020 with trading volumes increasing, you won't have enough people to keep up with it. So what we said was, let's give a better way to do this. So using API technology, and I know there's some technology, as I said, there is an API technology, but when I say API technology, I mean the mindset that you ask for something that you need and you get all of the data that's relevant to the thing that you ask for. So if you ask for an ISIN, you get everything that's related to the ISIN, as opposed to what you do before, where you just get an entire file of everything. And even if you only use 2 or 3 things from that file, you still have to do all that work. So using the API technology, you come and you request the data that you want, you get it back, and then you put it and you use it accordingly. You don't have to create this whole processing paradigm that takes lots of people and lots of time and lots of effort for 2, 3, 5 fields, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we're using APIs to push this data out to people.
And we know from our discussions with those in the industry that there are so many use cases that benefit from the use of APIs. I know for RDU, we really started our API journey when we developed our first regulatory product to support pre and post trade reporting for MiFID. APIs allowed us, an efficient way to support and return reference data for regulatory, the tight regulatory timelines. As the trades were happening throughout the day, there was no way that somebody could go through that big process that you just described and onboard all that data and keep it current throughout the day. That the APIs were just a nice, quick way to say, okay, I'm trading this trade. Am I an SI? Is the bond, the bond? I'm a fixed income girl. Is the, is the instrument liquid? What do I have to do with it? And so to be able to fire off an API immediately after a trade and get back that information, it was just such a nice marriage to use APIs in that first regulatory product. And as the use cases started to grow, we realized that let's just apply offer APIs across all of our data sets, right?
And let's take your example even further. So now imagine you've determined you're an SI, and then you've done a trade, and now you need to settle that or move it within your organization. Large or small, you have order management systems, you have broker systems, you have collateral systems, and they all use different identifiers. And so one might be using RIC. Well, I don't know if it's LSE identifier now, but a RIC. And then you have Figgy or a Bloomberg ID, and then you have ISIN. And now you need something to tie that. So that's when you would use our cross-reference API, where you would give one of those and you get all three back. And now you could start having all of your systems working together without having poor trading associates going around to different terminals, trying to figure out what the ID is, manually keying it in, creating all kinds of errors because somebody had superimposed a digit or a letter. And it's all automated. You have an entire operations team that's making sure that it's correct and cleansed. So between getting your regulatory data, getting your operational data right, you have just removed a lot of the friction that happens in trading environments.
Yeah, and this isn't just limited to tier one banks, right? This is something APIs is, and I know I call it a technology because I'm not a technologist, but the APIs world overall, I think is beneficial to all size firms. Is that a correct assessment?
Yeah, and it, like I said, it could be the 4 or 5 person hedge fund or the large banks, the top tier one. They all have the same problems, just different volume, which is why APIs are good again, because you pay for what you use when you need it. If you're a large firm and you do 40,000 calls in a month, you get charged accordingly. And if you're a smaller firm and you only do 200 a month, you get charged accordingly. But the point is, you have the same exact clean data as any other organization. Again, removing the friction that there is. Your chances of having breaks are reduced considerably because lots and lots of people are using the same data. You don't have different views of what an instrument is, typical a preferred instrument, a preferred equity, right? Somebody calls it fixed income, someone calls it equity. The asset types don't clash, and suddenly you have a clash. But if you have the same reference data, it's going to always work and the friction is removed. And now you got your capital, you got it cleared, you're settled fast, you can reuse that money to do something else.
Yeah, and APIs also come in handy to fill those gaps, right? So if you have a set of data and you're missing 1 or 2 items, instead of going to your source, waiting for the file to come in that night or for the next batch file to come in, processing it through your security master, et cetera, you can just fire off an API to your service provider and get back the data that you need to fill in your gap. So there's a lot of different use cases. Do you mind walking us through, Rocky, perhaps one of the use cases that we see often in the market?
Yeah. So we have a demo for you. So what we have is basically 2 spreadsheets, what's typical at a hedge fund, medium size. They get trades that came from their broker, and then they have their internal order management side. They're in different orders, but the broker has sent back ISINs, and you have it as Bloomberg IDs, as very typical the case. Yeah. So in the demo, what you'll see is the top, the bottom. We'll push one of the Excel buttons. It'll go out, call our cross-reference API, populate the ISIN on the bottom, and then it'll go from red to green matched.
Wonderful.
So as you can see here, you have the above spreadsheet, which would be the data that comes from our broker or one of your brokers. And the bottom sheet is the actual data that you get from your order management system. So if you notice here that the data seems fairly typical, the top one is identified using ISIN, the bottom one's identified using the order management system, which would be Bloomberg ID. And if you notice, they don't match. And the reason for that is because we're trying to compare ISINs to Bloomberg IDs, and therefore they don't match. So what will happen is at some point in the next few seconds, we're going to click the button. When that button gets clicked, what will happen is a series of API calls to the RDU Access API will be made using the ISIN, and then what will return is the Bloomberg identifier. And in that Bloomberg identifier, we'll populate the cells in both sheets, and then what will happen is both of the records would match, and now you have a fully reconciled spreadsheet.
So thank you very much for that demo. I think it was
Absolutely.
very helpful to watch the magic happen behind the scenes. I also know that in the regulatory space, another good use case, our last use case before we close out discussing all the possible ways to use the API, is in control framework. So that's a very popular topic lately that everyone's talking about. The regulators are really pushing for everyone to have, a solid control framework around their regulations. And we've seen the API become very helpful in that case in a couple ways. One, for an alternate source of data. So if you want to validate it, is what I'm reporting accurate? How are you going to validate that without comparing it to something? So it's a good way to only pull the data you want to compare and have a secondary source of data in your control framework. Another way of using APIs is to fill those gaps. So you have a report, you have 90% of the fields that you need to report and you're missing 10. Instead of, again, going through that whole process we just described, we're seeing, clients use the APIs to go out, get data, and fill the gaps in their reporting. And then lastly, in the regulatory space, I think, for the control framework, you need to go back in time sometimes. I mean, we don't like to talk about that, right? Because you want to think that you got your reporting right the first time, but oftentimes you're going back to say, did I underreport or overreport on a particular day? And so why not just use an API to look at that day's, worth of data and compare to see, did I report right or not, instead of having to deal with all historical data and going back and looking at the world as it existed in one place. So we're seeing a lot of good use cases for the APIs in that sense as well. So we've laid out a number of use cases between the two of us, and I think we could talk for hours about this. But I'm going to turn around a CTO question for you.
Sure.
Do you think that the APIs align with the industry's move towards digitization? Do you see the APIs fitting into the general move we see in the industry to digitize? Are APIs a disruptor, or are they a stepping stone in that journey?
So, APIs are definitely a disruptor, and they're also changing the way software and specific software companies view themselves. If we go back to about 2018, Salesforce.com reported that 60% of their revenue came from API usage. If you think of AWS, their API usage. If you think about some of our software companies that are around what we do, they've all exposed their services through APIs. Why is that? Because in today's age, you need to be able to connect things that are not physically connected. If you would have said that 10 years ago, that banks and hedge funds and whoever else in financial industry would be storing their data in clouds, they would have told you were crazy. But if you're not doing it, you're considered a laggard, and people are pulling money out of your organization because you're not forward thinking. So APIs are definitely going to be pushing this industry further and further into openness. You look at other companies out there like Plaid with the Open Financial Network. This is here to stay. If you're not using an API to start moving your whole entire infrastructure to better, faster, quicker, you're behind. And we will be there with you as a partner to help you continue that journey. We will disrupt your competitors, and we will make sure that you're going forward in an innovative sense.
Wonderful. Okay, I think we're running out of time, although we could go on and on. But before we start the Q&A session, I wanted to remind everyone that if you are interested, as Rocky just mentioned, we're here for you. So if you're interested in our APIs, or you're just starting to explore maybe how reference data APIs can help you and your firm, please feel free to take advantage of our 2-week trials available through what we call our RDU Access portal. You can reach the portal at rduaccess.smartstreamrdu.com or contact one of us directly, and we'd be happy to get you started. It's a great way to uncover the power of APIs and start to get, start to play around in that space and see what use cases possibly our APIs could help you with. And so with that, we're going to say thank you very much. Rocky, thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
And we're excited to hear your questions, and we're here to answer them.
Absolutely. Thank you.